Hello and welcome to my tutorials. In this episode we're going to focus on the overlay animation system that is being added to the animation master component. What we done in this episode is added the network animation montage with root motion directly to the component. You can run an event from there. And we added an overlay system which is already included in the base animation graph. With two examples, rifle and pistol poses from the animation starter pack, as also a few examples of gameplay possibilities using those features. So let's jump in. Okay, this is the map you might recognize from the previous tutorial. I already opened a few of the blueprints we'll be talking about today. I've got a lot of information that my tutorials are a bit too long, so I will try to focus as much as I can. Let's take a quick look what we have here. Okay, so I can see myself in the second window. We are now just moving directionally with aim offset. We can right click, and right click will zoom the camera and change the FOV of the camera, field of view. Fluently at any point it will go one way and go back. On Q you have the networked vault that we already had, but executed in a different way. And now on 1 you can select pistol as a weapon, let go of the right mouse button and you go back to directional locomotion. Hit right click again and you are aiming with the pistol. Hit 2 and you switch weapon to rifle and you are aiming with the rifle. Okay, so how this is being set up? Let's look in the third person character and let's look in the main animation graph. So first of all, I've added two small functions. One is called local player, which is basically just checking if this pawn is locally controlled and is player controlled. So if it is locally player controlled, that means we have a local player. Second function is checking if our mesh anim instance is playing any montage, and we are using this value later on. On the begin play, I removed a lot of stuff and left the absolutely bare minimum. I also added the on crouch and on landing from the previous tutorial to the main graph. Okay, let's look here. So basically I've added two new variables, one that is aiming to check if we are aiming, and the second one is the weapon selected. A weapon selected is not an enumeration, it's actually a gameplay tag, and we could use any gameplay tag, but we are using one of the gameplay tags from animation.overlay.something, and I already specified through few of the pro and the standard pistol, starter pistol and starter rifle aim. Those are the two that we'll be using. The default is none. So on pressing 1 we set the starter pistol, and on pressing of 2 we set the starter rifle aim, and then we go to the event aim. On event aim we are checking if the variable aiming is true or not. We set the true or not on right mouse button, and actually what we could do, we could make it a bit different. So instead of this execution we could do event aiming from both of those, and we'll just take aiming. And okay. Okay, so we on mouse button just check aiming or not aiming based on if it's pressed or not, and then we go to this event, and this event is being also triggered once we switch the weapon. We are doing this event here on switching weapon in case that we hit change of weapon while the aiming button, the right mouse button, is already holding down. So if it is, then we go to true. So what we're doing is we're running an event, change camera arm, and I've made a custom event that's saying what's the zoom value on this camera and what's the standard value on this camera. And if we go here, we'll see that based on if it's zooming, then it's playing this timeline from the point that it is at. So it's not playing from the start, it's playing from the point. And on false, it's just reversing. The timeline is just from 1 to 0 within half a second with a nice smooth ease in and ease out. And what we are doing, we're taking the minimum value, which is the zoom value, and we are adding multiplication of our delta times the difference between the zoom value and the standard value. So if the zoom value is here, if the zoom value is 120 and standard value is 300, that means the difference is 180. So we are multiplying 180, so the difference, by a value between 1 and 0, and we are adding it to the minimum, which is 120. And in this case, we got 120 to 300 based on this. And we don't have to, change any value inside the timeline. We can use a single value, and we could run this event with absolutely different values and have different effect at any point. So for example, if we have a weapon that we want to increase those values, we could do that very easily. We could even map those two values, outrage A, outrage B, and this is zoom FOV and normal FOV, which is being mapped. So zoomed is 77 and normal is 90. Okay. Let's see if it automatically set it up. Yeah. So now we have full control over the FOV of the camera as well. So we're taking this value, as I said, we are setting the target arm length of our camera boom, and then we're taking our camera, and we don't need this, we're taking our camera, and on this camera we are just mapping a range of this arm length, and we know that the in range and out range is the same as zoom value and standard value. So when the standard value is our maximum, we take normal FOV, and when our zoom value is our minimum, we take zoom FOV. So the closer the camera is, the bigger, the smaller is the FOV value, and the other way around. That's why we have it so smooth. Let's just look at it offline. It will be a lot faster. So the zoom, the arm length and the FOV are turning extremely fluently at any point. Okay, next thing we do is we set up the neutral pose. The neutral pose is just setting our additive alpha to 1 because we are using the animation base mockup basic on our animation master component. What it does, we already established in the previous tutorial. And then we're setting up the aim offset as being look at with 135 degrees clamp angle and aim offset speed of 6. And that's it. And we have a second event, which is our weapon pose. And weapon pose, because of how the animations are set up, must use additive alpha 0. And then set up the pose as base starter iron sight, but it will not display actually iron sight animation. It will use the overlay. And then it set up the aim offset to aim at maximum 90 degree left, right, up and down with aim offset speed of 6 as well. So here, when we are not aiming, we are setting up the neutral pose right away. But if we are aiming, we are setting up the weapon pose only under certain circumstances. I will go there right now. So if we are aiming, we are doing a network change speed. This event is just checking if we should slow walk or not. Our slow walk is automatically set. We don't push those values to the movement component because that's not safe on an actual multiplayer game. So we should have those values somewhere stored and best if replicated, and they could be changed by the ability system or by custom events on the server. But the server should have absolute authority over the speed of the character. So we're checking those speeds, and then we're running a server event, and on server we're doing the exact same thing and setting the exact same values, and we don't need to multicast because server speed is overwriting any local speed on remote clients, and character movement component is taking care of that for us. And then getting back here, we're changing the speed. And then we are running an event on our animation master component. We're saying that our overlay should be the selected weapon tag overlay. So once we press 1, we set overlay to pistol. Once we press 2, we set overlay to rifle, and we are setting it here because at some point on the way we are resetting it to being nothing when we release the mouse button. So on release we do the same things basically. Only thing that is being done in different order is the pose itself, but we're doing the camera, we're doing the turn rotation type, we are doing also the turn rotation type, we're doing the change speed, we're doing the change speed is just in different order, and then we're resetting the overlay, and here we are setting up the overlay. So the only thing that will execute or won't execute depending on if we actually selected any weapon, because you see the default value is none. So until I press 1 or 2, if I right click, I don't change my pose. I do the zoom, but I don't change the locomotion type. I change the speed. I've changed only the things I want to change if I don't have any weapon selected. So if I want my weapons to be hostile, for example, I would do this. But as soon as I have a value of a weapon, so this is checking, this is just a simple macro. It's checking if the gameplay tag that we are pushing is a valid tag, and if it's not equal to something. And the not equal to none, obviously, because we are setting none here when we are resetting the overlay. So if it's not equal to that, so it's true, we do the weapon pose and then we change the turn rotation. So this happens only when we have a weapon. Okay. Okay, change of the base pose we already covered. Change of the weapons we covered. I think that's almost everything. Change work speed, yeah. And the last thing we have is the Q button is doing the new event, which is play networked montage, and it allows you to push everything you can to the montage itself, and it's playing locally, and it's taking care of the networking by itself, so you don't have to do anything. So the final effect of this on dedicated player is, once again, let's get this guy going here. We are directional moving. We can zoom and start walking, and now we're slow walking with aim offset still. Once I even zoomed or not zoom, I hit 1, I get the pistol pose, and now I am doing from place aim offset, which is aiming, not looking, so my hands follow the aim of the pink line. And once I hit 2, I change the pose overlay to rifle, and that's it. So let's take a look at the overlay system itself. The only change is that we have the base pose here as we had, and then we are saving this pose, and previously we used this pose here, but now we are using the overlay base pose here, and this base pose we are using in the overlay system. So when we don't have any tag, we don't have any overlay, we're just taking the base saved pose and we're just pushing it forward and doing nothing else. Then if the pose is not none, we are entering the conduit. The conduit moves us anywhere if the overlay pose tag is just valid, that's it, if it wasn't invalidated. And then we move in the exact same way that we are moving on the base pose state machine. However, in those states, you have linked graphs exactly like you have in the base pose, where you also have just linked graphs with some extra variables exposed. But here you have linked graphs that actually take input poses. So let's look at one of those graphs. So we have an input pose, and this is a special node that makes this input pose exposed when you are using this linked anim graph. We are saving this pose, and then on top of this pose we are blending on spine 01 with blend depth of 2. So if the pose was more aggressive, like he was standing basically sideways aiming the gun, the spine would bend slowly towards the pose where his shoulders are in this exact position. And after this, we're just playing one idle animation. There's nothing more to it. And we're doing some small copy bone for the IK bones. Because of this anim graph, it doesn't use IK bones. So if we skip that, those are our IK bones. And that would completely break this very important node. So that's why we are using this. It helps us after the aim offset make a correction of the left hand in the relation to the right hand. So when you are looking up, down, left, right, those hands, they stay in the exact same relation to each other, no matter how many additive animations you put on the entire silhouette. Those two bones will be in check. And yeah, that's it. You don't really need any variables here because this is a very simple overlay system. I will make a lot more complicated one just to showcase what you can do with overlays. But that means that you can take any pose, any male or female pose, and blend rifle pose on top of it. Or you can have multiple overlays that would be, aiming down the side or hip aiming, depending on the state. And this will blend on top of crouching, it will blend on top of jumping, it will blend on everything. I think we should be able to jump just fine with it. Yeah, so we are still aiming. The aim is as should be, and we are still doing the roll on landing. And everything works fine. So yeah, that's simple as that. And now, from now on, we will be using those two systems all the time. Okay, so what's next? The next tutorial will cover the first person animation. We will make an overlay animations for first person animations, and we'll take hands only animation, we'll blend them on top of the full body animation and explain how to do that in future with different animations. We'll make an example that is with free content, and we'll make a second one with some downloaded animations from the marketplace. We'll make a special aim offset for first person, which will be dedicated to this view. And we'll make sure that everything works on multiplayer perfectly. Next step will be reworked of the ragdoll that will be multiplayer ready. We'll do Resident Evil example project with download. So we will rework it so it works with this tutorial assets instead of marketplace assets. And we'll add Resident Evil inventory system, which is similar to the one that you see in the new games, where you have combining of items, picking up weapon modifications, and stuff like that. And just for fun, we'll make it also multiplayer doable. Okay, thank you very much, and see you all next time.